Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's product demo, Advance Your Leadership Skills with Legacy Leadership Competency Inventory, hosted by HRDQ-U and presented by Devin C. Hughes. My name is Sarah, and I will moderate today's product demo. If you have any questions or comments, please type them into the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll answer as many questions as we can today. Anything that we're unable to answer for you today, we will follow up with you via email with any of the answers that you need. And I'd like to now welcome our presenter today, Devin C. Hughes. Devin is an award-winning speaker, best-selling author, and internationally recognized expert in the science of happiness, organizational and culture change, and leadership development. He's lectured and worked with a variety of Fortune 100 companies, as well as the Secret Service, the IRS, and an assortment of profit and nonprofit organizations. Devin's the author of 20 books, has lectured in more than 15 countries. He lives in San Diego, California with his wife, 4 daughters, and 2 rescue dogs. Devin, thanks for joining us today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. Delighted to be here with you today. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I think it's really so relevant for where we are right now in the world. So we're going to jump in here and get pretty deep. My goal for this session, and what I don't want to do is lecture to everybody, is not only help you, but more importantly, for you to help other people too, right? That's really the tenet of leadership. So we're going to help you, but enable you to help other people too. At the heart of leadership, essentially, is our why and what can we do to help others be the best version of themselves, about creating greatness in others. And so I would argue it's not hopeful happenstance, so we can be very intentional. And this is why I'm so excited to present this demo today. If you look at where we are right now in the business world, things are pretty unusual. I don't care whether you have a graduate degree, an MBA, whatever you've done, you've been in leadership for 10 years or 50 years, you haven't led in this environment. And so things are pretty precarious right now for a variety of reasons. I'm pretty sure you're going to be pretty interested to see as we continue on and I unpack some of this demo here today. But I'm not tone deaf to where we are. I mentioned it's pretty heavy right now. So I ask you, what do you think?
All right, we have our first poll launched here, so we'll give you a moment to answer that. Do you feel like your leaders are prepared for the unique challenges facing them? No, maybe, or yes. And we'll give you 15 more seconds here to vote. I see just about 70% have voted so far. So we'll give you another second here to finish submitting your vote. Okay, great. So we have 24% of you said no, 59% maybe, and 18% yes.
Okay, so almost 60% in the maybe, huh? Maybe. All right, well, maybe, and I'm going to use that word, maybe after today, you'll feel a little bit more confident about why this demo will move them from a maybe to a yes. The purpose of the inventory, this product, which again, I'm so passionate about, is we want to give them both the will and the skill to be a better version of themselves to support their teams, the organizations, and the outcomes that all of us at whatever capacity and organization want to drive. Now, as I mentioned earlier, whether you've been in leadership for 1 year or 50 years, you haven't led in this environment. And so this is again why I'm so excited to share this with you today. Now, what is the inventory? What is it designed to do? Well, a couple things. Enhance their understanding of themselves, their effectiveness, unpack the 5 core competencies or best practices in the model, identify their strengths, their gaps, an opportunity to give them some things not only to think about, but some things to do, what we call actions. Because too often when I find leadership programs, they give you a lot to think about, but not a lot to do. Here, it's both. And finally, create an action plan, a development plan to operationalize the learning. How many trainings have you, me, and others been in where you got a bunch of information, but you did not operationalize it? Well, you've got the best of both worlds with this product. So I want you to think about, a second here. If we go back down memory lane, think of a person from your past or present, work, personal life, whom you would consider an ideal leader. What did this person know that you didn't know? What did this person believe in? What did this person do? Was there a reason why when I asked this question, that when I say great leader, ideal leader, they came to mind? Think about that for a second. Now, you might have had more than one, but they stood out for some reason. And I want you to use that as a lens or filter as we move throughout this this demo today to think about what did they do to clearly put themselves in your mindset in terms of an ideal leader. But there's challenges. I don't want to be tone deaf. I mentioned some of them already. What are some of your biggest leadership challenges right now? It looks like 60% of you said that your leaders are maybe prepared. That said, what are some of the biggest leadership challenges right now in your organization? If you could share those in the questions tab, that'd be great.
We'll give you a moment to chat that in there. What are some of your biggest leadership challenges? We have a quiet crowd today, Devin.
Wow, maybe
Oh,
they don't have
here
any
we go.
challenges.
We have connecting to the people that do the work, managing a virtual team, collaborating amongst colleagues, working in silos within the company. Those are some of the responses that we've received.
So, okay, all right. I bet you there's more. But again, in the context, again, challenges don't mean there's anything wrong, right? There's always going to be challenges, but I also want to be contextual here in terms of where we are right now and why I think this demo would be very, very appropriate for you. So I just, Sarah, went upon myself and just identified some of the biggest challenges that I see out there. Leader development, right? Are we doing it enough of the right things with whom? Organizational culture. Culture matters. Environments always matter, right? Clearly, culture results from the messages we receive about what is really valued around here and what is not. I heard, is it hybrid? Is it remote? Is it in person? What's the tempo? What's the cadence? All that's culture. Workforce planning, change management, and technology. Technology, again, there's a gamut of that, but one is certainly AI. These are some of the leadership challenges that I'm running across in some of my clients that I imagine maybe kind of sort of they might be on your radar screen too. So that said, one of the ones that we don't talk about enough is 5 generations in the workforce. Yes, indeed. We got 5 generations in the workforce. Now, there's no right or wrong. There just is. This is one that too often we talk about relationships. I think I heard that earlier. I'd be curious, and I don't need to know your social security number. I'm going to step back for a second before. I'm actually curious, Sarah, in the questions tab, if you're comfortable, I want to see who we have here today. What generation are you? Traditionalist, baby boomer, Gen X, millennial, or Gen Z? Who do we have here today?
Oh, right now we have a lot of millennials coming through, Gen X. Oh, right now it looks like we're split between millennials and Gen X.
Okay.
We have a baby boomer in here joining us today.
We got one?
Just one. And then the majority are millennials and Gen X. Gen X is taking the win here.
Sarah, can I get vulnerable and say that I'm a Gen Xer?
You can.
Gen X, Gen X. Yes. All right. Well, great. So we got a little bit of everything. Now, just in the workforce, depending on where you work, what organization scale, we've got all of us. Now, I would argue there's a common denominator that we all want to feel seen, heard, and valued. Let me say it again, seen, heard, and valued. Now, that said, we've also got some more challenges right now. We've got a loneliness epidemic here in America. We got more lonely adults than we've ever had in the history of the planet. We're as connected but disconnected. And I look at the data, and again, I just didn't unpack all of it, but it's pretty shocking. Having friends over to the house is down. Shared family dinners and vacations are down. Volunteering is down. Church attendance is down. Now, this is not right or wrong. This is just is. The data is the data. It's not emotional. What do all these provide for human beings, folks? Maybe it's obvious. They provide a conduit for human beings to gather. Yes, to gather. As you can clearly see, we don't gather as much, which is interesting. Now, the U.S. is 23rd in the world in happiness. This is the first time ever that the U.S. has been out of the top 20. Is that a problem? Yeah, I think so. The richest country on the planet's got more unhappy humans right now than we've ever had. You see, we don't have work brains and home brains. No, we got one brain. And so when unhappy people are showing up at work, it tends to affect the environment. Also affects their performance and their mental health and well-being. I love this. This is fascinating to me, this research that in hybrid environments, 58% of the nearly 2,000 employees admitted to coffee badging. Do you know what coffee badging is, Sarah?
Is that chatting around in the kitchen?
No, coffee badge. Well, that's two, but coffee badging is in a hybrid environment. If you're gonna make me come back 2 or 3 days of work, I badge in, I get a cup of coffee, I take a couple laps around the office, and then I'm out of there.
Oh, see, that's a new one for me, being a virtual employee.
Yeah, where's Billy? I don't know. I saw him earlier. That's coffee badging. I'd laugh. But again, that's who we are right now. But if you look at where we are right now in terms of engagement, and I digress, there's three types of employees: engaged, not engaged, or actively disengaged. Now, I imagine everybody on here is engaged. Clearly, that's why you're here on the clearly that's why you're here. But that said, these people show up at work. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And as we look and we dive into the demo here, I wonder who's in your boat at work. If you think about your team that you're currently on, do you have people sitting in all three sections of the canoe? It is a canoe. 2025 is a journey. We just started. But Gallup's done a lot of research and says that people show up at work either engaged, not engaged, or actively disengaged. In the chat box, if you would, and we'll do it quickly, what percentage of the planet, according to Gallup, at work, and I say work, is engaged, not engaged, or actively disengaged? We'll give you 30 seconds tops, no more. What do you think? Now, I'm not talking about your organization. I'm just talking about the aggregate at work. What do you think?
We
Where
have
are we?
33% engaged. We have actively disengaged. Another actively disengaged, not engaged. Another 33% engaged. 15% engaged. So we're all over the board here.
Yeah, well, it's funny. They're making up their own numbers, which is fascinating, Sarah, because if you look at the work from Gallup, here we are, right? Is that a problem? If 23% of your workforce or your team is thriving at work, and it's interesting when I asked the question about yes, no, maybe, you all kind of said most of your leaders are right there in the middle too, not engaged. So this is again why this is so apropos that we're doing this program today. Now, clearly, I'm not suggesting or implying that your organization, but this is interesting data nonetheless, because I often find that people are showing up to work with these faces. And I imagine you've seen these faces at work. I hope you haven't seen them too much in the mirror, but I imagine you've seen them. So, the research. This demo is built on the Mount Rushmore of leadership thought leaders from Covey to Blanchard and Hersey, taking a collective aggregate leadership research, embedding it here to change behavior, change outcomes, change environments. This is, again, I'm a research junkie, but research in and of itself doesn't excite me unless you can operationalize it and do something with it. Because too often I find that information is not transformation. Here we have both context, research, and tools, which is why this is so fascinating. Again, so if you look at this, legacy leaders, we look at the relationships, it's just fantastic in terms of what you can do here to drive change. And legacy leaders serve others before self. We've heard that. It's not necessarily new, but context as we go into the demo here and things we're going to operationalize. And I'm really going to beat on this self-efficacy and then things you can do to help others. So that said, this is a complete dynamic system, integrated pieces, and the whole is certainly greater than the sum of the parts. So that said, if you look at totality of some other research out there, positive emotions don't simply diminish the entrenched disconnection, it eliminates it altogether. The point of this is that, again, I looked around for different data points on research. The common denominator is better environments, better leaders create better outcomes. Positive emotions, when people are in a better place emotionally, they tend to perform better. If I say that to all of you, are you at your best when you feel your best? I would clearly think you probably would all say yes. Well, the research is pretty demonstrative on that. Again, fostering high quality connections in the workplace. Again, looking at other data here to clearly show that optimistic, positive leaders, leaders that are empathetic, compassionate, clearly create better connections, better outcomes, better performance. So that said, the godfather of all leadership, Peter Drucker, and I'm going to read this quote aloud. He said, effective leadership is not about making speeches or being liked. Leadership is defined by results, not attributes. Wow, I couldn't have said it any better myself. So that said, a mentor of mine once said, well, what does that look like? Well, we all have a say-do ratio. I'm not sure if you've heard of that term. Well, a say-do ratio is you want to aim for 1-to-1, where if you say it, do you do it? Well, that's one effective way you can amplify your leadership effectiveness. Have you ever worked for anyone in your career, and I don't need their names, who says a lot and doesn't do a lot? Kills leadership credibility. Say-do ratio, what's yours? And is there an opportunity to improve it? Should be 1-to-1. So let's jump into the demonstration here. That's the backstory. That's the context for where we are, who we want to be. Let's jump into the demonstration. First, there's an assessment. Yes, there is an assessment, a 53-page inventory on the best practices of legacy leadership. Now, this is really, really powerful. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm a data junkie. I love feedback because we hear feedback is a gift. Well, this is an opportunity for you to get some real-time feedback on where you sit. So here's the first, when we unpack the model here: direction and commitment. Values matter. Yes, values do matter. Those aren't just the things that hang on the break room on the wall that everybody kind of walks by but doesn't actually operationalize. They absolutely matter. So what do we do to operationalize those? How do we create a collaborative environment? How do we drive innovation? Not just the what, but the how. How do we build meaningful connections in this new normal? I keep hearing that language, the new normal. How do we actually build meaningful connections in a remote or hybrid or in-person environment right now? How do we foster inclusion, diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, diversity of experiences? And essentially, how do we ensure clear execution and maintain high performance? Because at the end of the day at work, we want to drive outcomes. That's why we're there. So really, when I first got into this, and again, I was so passionate about this. Everyone tends to fall in love with their strengths, and certainly those are my superpowers or your superpowers, and we want to maximize those, right? There's certain things that came out of the assessment, like, wow, I had no idea that was a strength. I need to do more of that, right? Unrealized strengths or potential things, and maybe there's an opportunity also to do more of this, which is fascinating. But there was also some things that I needed to do less of or stop doing, areas of vulnerability or some weaknesses are unknown. Now, again, we all have blind spots. Yes, we do. And the assessment gives you a really, really good assessment on your strengths and some opportunities or areas of opportunity to get better. The best thing about this, though, I found doing this gives you an opportunity to have conversations. Conversations. So if I was a leader and I took the assessment, one thing I might do is go back to my team and share and have an opportunity, and it creates an opportunity to have conversations about this for all of us. So the assessment details, it's 50 items, pretty straightforward. Again, you certainly can rate your behavior consistently, frequently, on average, occasionally, or not at all. A couple open-ended questions, which is fascinating. And again, you get a report back: novice, proficient, or legacy leader. And again, it highlights strengths and growth areas. Now, that said, what do you do with it? Now, I gave you one example, right? You can do a self-rater or multi-rater versions for this. You can actually use it as a 360 if you wanted, as a multi-rater. If you wanted to use this and go around and have people rate you, it'd be interesting if you took it yourself, right? See how you see yourself, and then evaluate how other people see you. And I would imagine if you've done anything similar to this, there's usually a chasm or a gap on how you see yourself versus others. Now, it's not just on the blind spots. Oftentimes, you'll find that people find a strength that you weren't even aware of. You're like, wow, that's really a strength of mine? I had no idea. You mean if I do more of that? And sometimes it's the subtleties of the little things that we do that we're unaware of. Really, really powerful stuff to start the assessment. And again, here's what it looks like. Again, just to give you an example, not overly complicated, doesn't take that long. It's 53 questions. But again, let's start with the data. Let's start with a little self-analysis, a little self-reflection, and then we can move from that. Now, You have it, you get the inventory report, you come back, where do my strengths lie? What are the areas of opportunity? Are there gaps between how I see myself and others see, which I just alluded to? Now, this would require a level of vulnerability, right? Yes. Are you open to feedback? Are you open to others giving you feedback? Yeah, I think so. We should be. And if you have a safe environment, this is a great way. Too often you'll hear language like this, and it's being used in that a lot right now around psychological safety. Again, many of you may be familiar with it. Well, this is one way or a tenet to create more psychological safety is that when you start by sharing what some of your strengths and areas of opportunity are and getting real-time feedback, it creates a more psychologically safe environment. So that's the inventory report. Really, really powerful stuff. But not only the report, but it's what you do with the report that really, really matters. Now, I took this and I created a development plan. Yes, you can see right here. Here's an example, right? What were my key strengths, some of my challenges, right? Talk to my peers, my manager, and others. Now we have performance reviews, but most organizations, those are still at the end of every year. Some of us are still in the process of writing them right now. But how about a real-time development plan that we're going to work on, right? Quarter to quarter, put the 4 quarters together in a year, a lot easier to manage. You have some stakeholders who would check in with you. When I did this, I had stakeholders check in with me once a month to see how I'm doing. We had some shared upon goals that I wanted to be a better version of myself, and then we'd check in and see for updates and progress. Really, really powerful stuff when you have other people. Now, another tool, which is a part of the demo, which I thought was really, really powerful that I was surprised was this playing card set and this wallet card set. And again, what this does, and I alluded to it just a little bit, is it gives you an opportunity to have conversations, right? Because if what I find with leaders at any level, if we're not talking about it, it's clearly not that important, right? We talk about things that matter. And so this gives you an opportunity to talk about it, right? And so again, when we take one of the cards and have a discussion about, take one of your values, whatever your value may be in your organization, right? Well, let's take integrity. Maybe that's a value in your organization. Let's have a conversation about it. How do we actually operationalize that? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And you'll find with this in these cards that you have an opportunity to create space to normalize conversations about things like this that normally don't happen. So, example, how do you model your organization's guiding principles with stakeholders, internal, external? Again, creates a model, again, and I'm keep using this word, but I want to be clear here, to operationalize these core competencies and these behaviors, and having conversations is a really big deal, which is why I would encourage you when you purchase this demo to embed this in your team meetings, in trainings, so that people clearly see that it matters. So here are the best practices around the pocket cards. I talked about them a little bit, but again, you can see them here from holder of vision and values, creator of collaboration and innovation, influencer of inspiration and leadership, advocator of differences in community, and calibrator of responsibility and accountability. 5 legacy leadership best practices. So here's some things to think about. This is not, and you probably kind of sort of got the impression from me, not a standalone learning instrument. It can be, but it also can be part of a comprehensive training program. That's up to you. It's malleable. Now, every organization, size, scope, right? There's other things, on your plate. Some of you have trainers. Some of you would do the training yourself. Some of you have the bandwidth, introvert, extrovert, you kind of name it the gamut. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is you can use it as a standalone, or you can use it as a comprehensive training program to drive performance, develop leaders, do morale, team meeting, motivation, inspiration, and one that I also found was succession planning. How do you identify and nurture your future leaders now? This is a great way to start doing it by identifying these 5 legacy core competencies. And again, I touched on that just a little bit. Maybe you have a succession plan now. Great. Is there any meat around it, any teeth around it, while providing a 360-degree view of their strengths and weaknesses, and then creating an action plan around it is really, really, really powerful. Too often I'm in organizations and I find that people get promoted, maybe to mid-level manager or supervisor, and they don't have any support, no tools, no resources, no onboarding. They're just here. They got the title, but not really sure on how to operationalize that. This is a great way to assist them, support them to be successful. So some common challenges that I often find, and I don't want to be tone deaf to where they are. Fear of judgment, past negative experiences, bureaucracy or hierarchy, cultural differences, right, are some of the challenges. Conflict avoidance, right? Again, these are things that sometimes come up in teams why people do not feel like we can talk about this stuff. Well, this product, this leadership legacy product will put you in a position to overcome some of these challenges. Does anybody here, again, maybe in the Q&A tab or the questions tab, any of these challenges show up on your teams, maybe now or in the past where you've had to experience some of these? I'd just be curious. Anyone have any of these challenges right now or in the past that you've dealt with?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
What,
Yes.
do you mind me asking which one or which ones?
Negative experiences, past negative experiences, negative experiences. That seems to be the popular response here.
Wow. Okay. Well, interesting. So I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And this is fascinating because I've garnered this research from clients and organizations throughout the country. So tips for success. And I'm not going to say if you purchase this, but when you do. If you're serious about leadership development, then how would you not? Well, prepare the participants. What I mean, the people that are going to participate in the process. Communicate the process, the expectation, and the timelines. Create a supportive environment. I talked about psychological safety, right? We're going to have some real talk. This is a safe place for real conversations. This isn't to be perfect, and I don't need you to be perfect. We're just going to measure progress. We all can get better. Track progress, ongoing support, align this assessment with your own strategy and culture, and foster openness and clarify the purpose. Again, transparency is a really, really big deal. If you're going to do this, or not if, but when you do this, start with yourself, right? One of the things that frustrates me with all leaders is you have all the answers for everybody else, but you don't go through the process yourself. Start with yourself, take the assessment and dive deep, get the assessment back, create your own development plan, and then start to roll it out to others so they can see that you are part of the solution here. And finally, vulnerability, right? Model vulnerability. And this is again why I said you should start with yourself. Admit mistakes, right? Sets a precedent for everyone else to be honest and open. So some of the benefits and the outcomes: increase self-awareness, create career development plans, working relationships, team morale, dynamics, reduce interpersonal team conflicts, which is a big deal, build stronger teams. We spend more time at work than we do at home, so anything that we can do to build stronger relationships is always a big deal. Identify leaderships, which we talked about, succession planning. These are a number of the reasons why I think this program is so powerful in terms of leadership development. So, and then finally, we all want to be effective in terms of our leadership effectiveness, right? We want to be the best version of ourselves to support our teams and the organization. So, you're probably wondering what's included in this purchase. Well, you get a facilitator guide, right? A step-by-step guide. We're not going to leave you alone. Details, instructions, scripts, activities, sample, designed for a full day. It's malleable. You can ebb and flow on what you want to do, but you will have a guide to help you roll it out, give you the domain expertise, but also essentially a guide to roll it out so you're comfortable doing so. Quick start, train the trainer, which again I've done a lot of these. It would be 1 hour with someone like me where we go through it, Q&A, ask questions, share some feedback, some best practices. 1 hour before you actually roll it out yourself. Again, essentially train the trainer, 1 hour virtual coaching. That's available. The 5-pack, in terms of 1 pack equals 5 participants. Again, depends on the size of your team, but a content, critical content, workshops, forums, etc. The workbook, obviously, to accompany that. Again, if you got more than 5, you can purchase more than 5. But again, we're not going to leave you hanging. You have all the tools, resources, forums, planning you need to roll this out. The online assessment, which I talked about earlier. Again, single rater, multi-rater, that's up to you. Again, easy peasy, delivered electronically. If you do the online assessment, which is fantastic. The playing card sheet, which I spent a lot of time, all this gets included. You can certainly purchase the wallet card set as well, outlining the key takeaways, resources, tools to operationalize said knowledge. All that's a part of it. And then the companion book, one per trainer. The assessment supports all the workshop, insights, results, questions. Again, and and I think that last bullet point is really apropos, serves as a post-training reference tool. This isn't a one and done, folks. This isn't that one thing you do. And I think we've all been in those trainings. We came so excited and you came out of there and then you never heard it again. Well, this is not that. All right? This is a leadership development program. You're going to constantly embed and weave into the team to develop more leaders and ideally yourself. So why I recommend it, my research as well as Gallup clearly shows that leadership development is one of the most pressing issues facing organizations today. Stronger team dynamics, authentic leadership is needed, adaptability, personal growth, and positive impact. This is why I fundamentally recommend this. And right now I use it with all my clients, right? Because I would argue that leadership should not be hopeful happenstance. Hope is not a strategy. You need to be very intentional about what you're doing right now to develop capacity around leadership development. And there's a few reasons why I highly recommend this product. So next steps and opportunities, you can try the assessment for free, order the product, and do your own review. Certainly, if you'd like, try the product with an individual. That would be you, I would suggest, or a team. That's up to you. 30-day money-back guarantee. Quick start train the trainer is certainly available. We talked about that. Check your email for next steps. A lot of things you could do in terms of getting started. So I went through that pretty quickly, but I wanted to make sure I leave some time for questions if there are any. And thank you
Thanks,
so
Devin.
much.
Yes. So we have a question here about leadership and AI. Can you just, do you have any feedback to share on what kinds of leadership skills are, required in the age of AI?
Yeah, so that's interesting. AI is still developing, as we know, and it seems like it's developing at rapid speed every day, right? So I'm not anti-AI, I'm all AI. But what I have found, there's a balance on everything we do, right? In terms of how much. Now, it depends on the specific question is in terms of are you asking AI in terms of leadership development, or are you just asking AI in terms of its utility within an organization? Again, I'll answer both. In terms of using AI right now, I think that's the secret. Everyone's trying to figure that out. How do you operationalize AI in an environment? How do you get the most of it, right? Is it going to replace people or not? What do we do? What's the best utility for it? Well, that's to be determined right now, at least. In terms of leadership development, yeah. Do I think it's going to replace leaders? No. Do I think it's an adjunct to leaders? Yes. But I will also say right now, you look at the data that I showed you earlier, we're about as disconnected from work as we've ever been. If you look at that Gallup data, it's like 59% of the aggregate right now is disengaged at work. And so I think there's going to be a balance. And what I'm not anti-technology, but if we substitute technology for engaging with real human conversations, it's not going to serve us well. Because right now, again, I talked about the loneliness epidemic and everything else we have going on. I think there's got to be a balance, but that would be a conversation that I think you should normalize having on a team in terms of how do we operationalize AI? What does it look like? How often do we use it? So in some examples, normally I might call Sarah for a question normally because she's got a little bit more experience, but maybe now I use AI. Could that happen in the real world? Yeah, it probably saves me time, but maybe that's one less interaction that maybe Sarah and I have. And I don't know. I think we nature and nurture. We're still trying to figure that piece out.
And one more question for you here today, Devin. Yes, so can the results be easily integrated into an organization's existing leadership development programs?
Absolutely, they can absolutely be integrated, and they should be. If they're not, I think that's a huge miss. I don't think they should run parallel. I think they should be integrated, and that's why I mentioned earlier it can be a standalone instrument, or it can be integrated in terms of what else you're doing in terms of leadership development. I think it's a nice adjunct to what you're already doing, so it certainly should be integrated.
Great. And we had one more question come through here. Why would you choose this assessment over others on the market?
Well, I'm going to just be transparent in my bias. And I am an academic. And so I'll tell you this, the reason why I love this is because it's built for practitioners. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of jargon, a lot of academic speak that some of my peers have. I'm not being crass, I'm not being judgy, But what I'm saying is that for normal people, and I mean normal and I mean normal, not abnormal, normal, but normal in the context that we have a job. So if I'm a mid-level manager, a district manager, and I manage a team or a call center or service or whatever, and I got a team of say 8 to 80, I don't have a whole lot of time to parse. I need something that I get it, that's research based, and something that's practical, and then I can go operationalize it. I don't have a lot of time to learn that much necessarily. Now, there's a spectrum. So my answer to that question is it's for practitioners, people who want to take bite size of information, put it in context, practical terms that you can apply. It's in simple terms that people can contextually can understand and go utilize right away. And that's why I like it because it's built for practitioners.
Well, thanks, Devin. That will conclude the Q&A portion of our time together today. If you do have additional questions that you come across, please make sure to reach out to us. You can, go to hrdqstore.com, send us an email that's there at support@hrdq.com, or you can give us a call at the number on the screen. And we will also be sending you a link to take a free test drive of the assessment. So make sure that you check your inbox for that so you can test it out. And with that, thank you all for participating in today's product demo. Thank you, Devin, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. It was fantastic. Thanks, Sarah.
And happy training, everyone.